What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today's episode, we're really focused on catching you up on some of the moves the Jets made over the weekend, right? Concludes the first full week of free agency, and a lot of people are saying that the Jets have been active, but not with like big swings, not these names you necessarily know. I have been saying all week long, I actually like the approach of head coach Aaron Glenn, new GM Darren Mosey, as they are kind of getting younger. They are getting guys who have flashed in this league and still have some upside, and they continued that over the weekend, okay? The first thing I got to tell you about is they have added a Super Bowl winner at wide receiver, and his name is Tyler Johnson, okay? Tyler Johnson is 26 years old, 6'1", 210 pounds. He was a draft pick out of Minnesota. He was at Minnesota at the same time Rashad Bateman was, kind of forming a very interesting duo. Now listen, here's what I like about Johnson. He has had roles on Tampa Bay. He won a Super Bowl with the Bucs and Tom Brady and was kind of a dependable number 3 wide receiver. Played that same role the last couple of years with the Rams and Matthew Stafford. Both Brady and Stafford have really spoke highly about this guy, and so his stats, I'm not as worried about that because in Tampa he was behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. With the Rams he was behind Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. He did catch 26 balls for 291 yards and a touchdown last year, but here's what I like about him as well. He's got versatility. He can play outside or in the slot. He had some time in the slot when Cooper Kupp was down for the Rams last year. He's not necessarily a burner, but get this. 0 drops last year on 41 targets. He also brought in 13 of the 19 contested targets that he got. Okay, that's a rate of 68%. So he has good hands. He's not going to drop it. He's reliable. He's secure. And if you put a ball up that's usually like a 50-50 kind of ball, Tyler Johnson is coming down with this. Now listen, I don't think he is the wide receiver 2 opposite Garrett Wilson, right? What I do think is that he and Malachi Corley, who I've talked about the 3rd round pick that we had last year, are going to vie for that wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 option. I still think the Jets are going to add at wide receiver 2, whether that's a guy like Ted McMillan in the draft at number 7 overall, or they bring in a veteran. And as we'll say later on in this episode, there are plenty of veterans still available. But this continues to be on brand. 26-year-old Tyler Johnson, versatile and good hands, okay? He is not dropping stuff, and that is what we want, because remember, the Jets had really not made a ton of moves at the wide receiver position, and so they finally dipped their toe in the wide receiver waters, and it is on brand. Young guy with flashes, and this guy has won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and played with Matt Stafford, so we like that kind of pedigree, we like that kind of experience, and he can still develop even more for the Jets. Another position that we really haven't dipped our toe in, we signed multiple guys over the weekend, and it is at the defensive line. And first of all, I have to remind people, this is going to be a guy, if they are in that rotation, that would really replace the likes of Javon Kinlaw. And it's not like Kinlaw had a great season. He signed with Washington for money earlier on last week, but Kinlaw didn't really grade out that well. Last year in PFF grades, at least, Kinlaw had a 53.4 overall grade, and he was 50.8 graded against the run. He was not able to help us stuff the run. That was a need for the Jets this year, and I think they've achieved that with some of their defensive line signings. The first guy I want to let you know about is Byron Cowart. This is a 28-year-old guy. He played for the Bears last year, so again, guys in their mid to late 20s. He's 6'3", 300 pounds. He had just 26 tackles, 2.5 sacks last year, but here's the deal. He actually graded out, on PFF terms, higher than Kinlaw. He graded out as an overall 58.9 and was a 60 against the run. So looking for guys, again, on brand, in their 20s, that have shown flashes and that are helping us stuff the run, okay? And I've seen some of his highlights on tape. I gotta tell you, he does flash. He does have effort, that motor that we continue to talk about. I have seen plays where he's chasing 15 yards downfield, making a stop against a running back, okay? He was also the number 1 defensive lineman coming out of high school. I know that that's not like a huge thing to say as a notch on the belt, but again, this new regime, their vision are getting guys with pedigree that were highly regarded at high school and in college. And Byron Cowart is a name to know. We added him. I do think he's going to be a rotational defensive lineman. So will Derek Nandi, who is another guy we've signed from Kansas City. This guy is only 28 years old, 6'1", 320 pounds. He was, again, a third-round pick of the Kansas City Chiefs, has been with the Kansas City Chiefs for the last 6 years. So that means he is a three-time Super Bowl champion. And here's the deal with Nandi. He is a run stuffer, okay? Space eater, run stuffer, whatever kind of axiom you want to put that, he will be good in the run game, okay? He's like a nose tackle kind of guy. And honestly, when you're next to Quinnen Williams on the defensive line, most O-lines are going to be given attention to Quinnen, to Q, right? So when you have a true space eater that can help plug up the middle, I do think that helps stopping the run. He had a down year last year, but that's what we continue to do. Take guys that have potential to grow. He was a starter for Andy Reid for a long time, and really that run stuffing potential is something that I actually like to see. I also like the pedigree of being a three-time Super Bowl champion. But that is not all. We also signed Jay Tufele. He is a guy that was on Cincinnati last season. He's only 25 years old, hasn't really done a ton in this league. 6'3", 305 pounds. Not much with the Bengals last year. He was, however, a third or fourth round draft pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2021. Again, young, high-end draft pick in the top 3 or 4 rounds. We are accumulating talent. I really do believe that Nandi and Cowart will see time with Tufele, maybe not as much. But again, I gave you the PFF grades for Javon Kinlaw last year, right? Cowart was well above that. Nandi is regarded as a pretty good run stuffer. You can even see highlights of him stuffing the run against the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl last year. So they do have that experience. Here's the other thing it makes me think. Remember I said here on a previous edition of Jets Latest that you need to follow the money. And wherever they go, kind of in free agency, is going to tell the tale of what their draft priorities are, right? Mason Graham, a defensive lineman stud out of Michigan, is one guy that a few people have talked about for the Jets at number 7 overall. I personally never thought he was a target for the Jets at number 7 overall because I didn't think he'd be there. And I think with these signings, we are also starting to see that maybe the Jets don't think he would be there, and they're zoning in on a couple of other positions for that draft pick at number 7 overall, most notably offensive line or the tight end out of Penn State, Tyler Warren, which I think is becoming more and more of a potential really to get that game breaker at the tight end position. The other thing I want to say here, I've been seeing a lot of reports out there. I've been seeing a lot of buzz on social media and stuff at how this new regime, we're only signing young guys. Like, where are the veterans? Where are the splashy names? And let me tell you about that. Okay, that's part of why I like this approach. We are not trying to win the back pages. We are not trying to get the brand name that you have heard of necessarily. We're getting a ton of young guys. And the other part of this is that there are still a ton of veterans out there. You also have to remember that veterans are going to continue to get cut across the league and be available even before this kind of first wave of free agency. There's going to also be what they call post-June 1 cuts going into training camp. There's going to be surprise names that are veterans out there that will become available at bargains. Like, for example, at wide receiver, I know these names are not sexy, but there is a ton of wide receivers that you've heard of before that can still be had and can probably be had for cheap. Guys like Tyler Lockett, guys like Brandon Cooks, guys like Robert Woods, Nelson Aguilar, Tyler Boyd. And I know these are not sexy names, but that doesn't even count names that may be more intriguing, like an Elijah Moore coming back to the Jets, like a Amari Cooper, like a Keenan Allen, like a Deontay Johnson. I just reeled off like 8 or 9 veteran wide receivers, and there are going to be some that don't get the bag and are going to be looking for value deals. And remember, this is going to be like a number 2 kind of wide receiver opposite Garrett Wilson, with a guy like Corley and a guy like Tyler Johnson kind of playing that 3-4 role. And here's the other thing. The Jets, with Breece Hall, and obviously Justin Fields' dual threat capabilities, they're going to probably be a run-first team anyway, if you want to know the truth. So you put a solid veteran there, or a guy like Ted McMillan, as a high up guy, along with Garrett Wilson, you will be okay. It's not like every team in the league has to have some kind of dynamic duo like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, okay? Or Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, or Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That's not necessarily what you have to do with the shiny new toys. I like this approach. At O-line as well, there is a name I definitely want you to watch that is still available. Keep an eye on this week on Jedrick Wills out of Cleveland. I talked to you about this guy in previous episodes of Jets Latest. He would be on brand. He is a firmer first-round pick, only 26 years old, and he can be had in free agency. The Jets, even after spending money in the last week or two, they still have $32 million under the cap, at least. I think it's a little more than 32, and that ranks 13th in the league. So they're still right in the middle. There is still room for them to make another one or two bigger name signings, and I think on the offensive line might be a place that one still happens. Jedrick Wills from Cleveland is a name to note. And then, of course, at the tight end position, right? And we're all talking about tight end. People are starting to think that Tyler Warren out of Penn State could be the draft pick. We know we signed Stone Smart recently, right? You know there's Ruckert there. And honestly, if they miss out on Warren or they go with the offensive lineman, Will Campbell, let's say at number 7 overall, and they do not address tight end, remember, a veteran that could always come back is Tyler Conklin. You know what I mean? So to add to that room and be another kind of familiar presence. So I do believe that there are plenty of veterans still available. I think the Jets are actually taking the smart approach in terms of not getting all of these big name guys, getting younger and having them build and develop together. That's what I think, and that'll get you caught up on some of the moves that the Jets made over the weekend. Tyler Johnson at the wide receiver position could have a role, especially guys like Nandi and Cowart in the defensive line kind of rotation could be pieces that you see in green and white making plays in 2025. But one thing I know is you got to keep on watching Jets Latest. You got to like this video. You got to subscribe to the channel. This way you get an alert every time we go live and I give you the latest on the Jets, Jets. And by the way, if you want more from me, Dane Martinez, the spitting statistician, go on over to SiriusXM channel 87, the fantasy channel. I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show, okay? FTN is a great company, a lot of tools, a lot of data, a lot of things that'll help you win your leagues and win that cash. So even things outside the Jets, if you want to hear my analysis, the FTN Fantasy Show on SiriusXM channel 87 is the place to be. And you could always catch me on Twitter as well, at Spittin' Speeds. Be free to DM me, ask your questions, hit me up, check me out, and see what's going on here as I talk about the Jets and everything in NFL free agency, Major League Baseball on the horizon, and obviously the NBA as well going into the playoffs. But that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Tomorrow, we will continue to keep you plugged in on what the Jets are doing as they revamp this roster and build a new culture under Aaron Glenn and Darren Moji. That'll about do it. Like, subscribe, hit me up in the comments, and we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of Jets Latest. Peace.